don't know. I always forget what the French track name is. It's been 10 years. Come on, give me a break. Paul Ricard track, round 8, France. We're in the Hyundai Santa Fe. I would point this out for anybody watching these videos. Hyundai Santa Fe, cost for value, can't walk past it.
Joel, they're not putting an engine, a chassis or a team into the F1.
I know that, but hey, I'm just saying.
The other day they were talking on F1 about the benefits of finding a Chinese driver. Have we seen or heard any relation
a competitive
to a
Chinese
Korean
driver?
team?
Ooh.
Hyundai, now would be your time to jump on board. This isn't a sponsored video, by the way. So, Paul Ricard, round 8.
Round 8.
First of the triple back-to-back. First time ever.
Top 5 happenings. At number 5,
what do you reckon? Lap 1.
Gasly into the side of Ocon.
On
lost
turn
some
3,
wheels.
we had Gasly be closed out by Ocon in front. Ocon had track position.
Neither of them had anywhere to go. And the unfortunate thing is it ended in 2 DNFs.
For 2 Frenchmen. With the only other Frenchman, Grosjean, falling out of the points.
A bit of sarcasm.
He knows where I'm going with this.
Very unfortunate because, with all respect to Brendan Hartley, I would have liked to have seen Pierre Gasly a bit more on the track to kind of have a bit more of a gauge of how the Honda engine is actually performing. Just because I would like to see what Red Bull is getting into next year. And this is the only indicator that we really have.
Not what they need in order to be able to work out whether there's consistency and pace in this engine that Red Bull are now kitching all their bets on a 2-year contract, with them being the work team for Honda.
Exactly.
This whole Gasly Ocon thing was important because it really had a profound effect on the rear of the field and the ordering of events that occurred. Basically split them 2 McLarens left and right. You had Alonso, who had track position on Van Dorn, and Van Dorn went left. Alonso went right and had to navigate through traffic. And one of the race comments later on by Alonso was there was very little done in the way of corrective action around dealing with people that run wide and then realign those that were out of position.
But having said that, what could the stewards really have done?
That's it.
Reset the race?
But typically on other tracks we didn't have the ability to run off. The stewards had the ability to quickly resolve the issue of people that have opportunistically taken the chance to take a track position. It certainly had a very, very big outcome on...
Having said that, it still didn't stop the top 3 constructors placing in the top 5 position. No. Anyway, coming at number 4.
We have Carlos Sainz. MG UK, failure as we understand it. Second Renault engine.
Yes.
First one being, of course,
Daniel Ricciardo
in Monaco. But no power. Thankfully, it occurred in the last 2 laps of the race.
He was rescued a bit by the virtual safety car.
Which is as a result of what had occurred with Stroll having a blown tyre on that second last lap. So very, very lucky to get off. Thankfully, he managed it quite well, nursed it home for
He was doing quite
P8.
well. He managed to avoid a lot of damage in that first turn, and he took advantage of that and ended up in P3 for quite a good chunk of first quarter of the race. But there was nothing that Renault engine could do versus the Ferrari. That thing's just got beans.
The issues with regards to race pace, as also experienced by McLaren and others as well, was that he got as high as P3 and wasn't able to hold them off.
Kudos to the Renault's works team for really demonstrating the fact that they are at the top of the mid-tier.
Moving on to another Renault team.
Number 3.
Number 3, Joel. Alonso. This should be the mishappenings of Alonso, because this was really a series of events.
This is actually, I think, a multi-phased issue in this race alone. Just before the race, I actually posted a Quora comment where somebody was asking the question, is Alonso a terrible driver or is it the car? It is most definitely the car. It's not Fernando.
But let's just step through what we saw to be some of the key developments in that race weekend, particularly for Alonso and to a lesser degree Stoffel Van Dorn. Both of them qualified very, very poorly. Alonso P16, Van Dorn P17.
Worst quality this year.
You then had an issue into the race where Alonso swerved right as a result of the Gasly Ocon incident and dropped to P18. And then under the safety car, he decided to come into the pit. So that led on to the next issue, which was he come out of that pit stop, spun on lap 6 as a result of Vettel overtaking him on cold tyres, lost more track position then, had to take another pit stop much later on into lap 46, so moved to the back of the field after having clawed back a few positions, and then finally he had rear suspension that ultimately caused a DNF, a 3rd consecutive DNF, and this time unrelated to exhaust, unrelated to gearbox. Where do these issues end?
Bad juju.
Van Dorn from P17 up to P12, so well done. So really a comedy of errors, I think, is the best way to describe this. Number 2, Vettel. carving up the field, relegated to the back of the field, having caused a race incident.
Honestly, I actually feel justified. If you haven't watched our video on which 2 F1 drivers you'd pick if you owned your own team.
Joel's crazy cats.
I ain't crazy, and I think that this French race gave me a little bit of validity in what my choices were. Either way, kudos to Vettel. He basically came from the back and carved up the entire field up to P3. In doing so, tyre management, it just couldn't be maintained. He was on the hardest compound as well.
I mean, even he was saying that he had to lean on the tyres exceptionally heavily to get back to where he was.
That's correct.
Got to P3 and then ultimately fell back to a finishing P5. Had to take his 5-second stop and go.
Got driver of the day. I voted for him.
Well, it's his team, after all. I, on the other hand, would have voted Alonso, but look where that got me this weekend. Mentionable. P1 for Hamilton, well done. Regained the championships back again from Vettel. He had an easy win. He had the same win that Vettel did have in Montreal. Well done to Hamilton. Maintained a very good distance between himself and Verstappen in second all the way through. Well-controlled race. New engine. So he's going to get a new engine anyway as a result of whether they're going to be introducing the new version or, as they describe this one, the 2.1. And they did well.
Verstappen into P2.
Yeah.
He did a really good job of taking advantage of this scenario. Right off of the Vettel into the back of Bottas, he had to jump corner to avoid damage. Max just managed to establish himself into P2 and maintained it the entire time. He raced a good race, nice and clean.
The most interesting thing, though, was his post-race debrief comments, a slide remark at the public media, which I kind of agree with, but the professionalism by which you go about these things, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. Not holding himself in the highest esteem. That's his style, and if that's the way he wants to play the game, then that's fine. Bottas, 5-second penalty issued to Vettel. Was it a justifiable 5-second penalty, ultimately having seen Bottas come in nowhere close to Vettel?
After the crash, Bottas raced as fast as he could with his damaged left rear tyre to the pit, and in the process of doing so, damaged the floor to the point where he just could not really keep pace. He still managed to claw back into points.
So look, P7 for Bottas. Very unfortunate for Mercedes, given that he qualified in second. This is his third mishap. Azerbaijan was a very unfortunate outcome. Melbourne, another issue again.
He has experienced quite a bit of bad luck this year, unfortunately. More so than some others.
Yeah. But I just love the way Bottas carries himself in these
incidents.
He was a professional.
He was calm and cool as a cucumber. He did his job.
A really interesting mentionable was the moment with Sirotkin being issued a 5-second time penalty for going too slow in the safety car.
Sirotkin was handed a 5-second penalty for going too slow. That's beating the dead dog.
It is, exactly right.
Did anybody else notice the fact that there's no martini stickers on the Williams cars?
They were talking about sponsorship dropping in 2018. They neglected to mention as to when. Well, it turns out this weekend.
Seems it was in round 8 in France.
Magnussen. Haas, for the first time probably in the season, we've seen an exceptionally good finish by the Haas team. The pace demonstrated on the Friday, Saturday carried through into the Sunday, despite all the turmoil in the race. However,
did a good job.
In the other car.
Here it comes. Come on.
P11, out of the points again. 0 points for the whole season. Moving along. I'm just saying. You've got good equipment. You stick Alonso on that equipment. What would happen?
Just to point out, because I'm still going to jump back on that bandwagon again, but let's put that as a hypothetical.
He wasn't in my team.
Can you possibly imagine if Alonso was driving the Haas car, where he would be sitting? I think arguably you are talking close to podium, like at least P5.
Ricardo.
Daniel was very, very unlucky. Within striking distance of P3, managed to pick up a little bit of damage to his front wing, and Raikkonen just cruised past him. These are the reasons why Red Bull are looking outside of the Renault engine now to another alternative that they're hoping is going to be Honda. One more thing I'd like to say before we actually even get to number 1. I would like to point out, after the 2 processions we literally just had, there's a whole bunch of people complaining about France being a boring race. What are you talking about? How can you call France a boring race? Vettel overtaking the entire field, man, that was exciting to watch.
And or pretty much anyone else that had a pit stop. And I mean, you look at Raikkonen overtaking Ricciardo. So
Yes.
Excellent race, very exciting.
Yeah.
Joel thought, bring more of that on, please.
Exactly. Number one, right into the first corner. Sebastian Vettel basically was in the slipstream right behind Lewis Hamilton. Into the first turn,
Left-hander.
couldn't quite brake in time. He either had to run off the track or he was going to crash into Bottas.
Bottas did have track position, but when you think about Vettel, he's not going to run left off the track and wide and incur a penalty. In the end, Bottas didn't have anywhere to go. He couldn't go right, Verstappen was there. Couldn't go left, Vettel was there.
Yep.
He had to make the left turn. Basically, was in front of Vettel by this stage.
I think Seb definitely deserved the 5-second penalty. Did he deserve a worse penalty? I say no.
More runoff area makes for exciting racing. Weather didn't play a factor this time round.
Everybody was praying for rain.
And the wind didn't really play as much of an influencing factor as it did with
Not that I
the
noticed.
qualifying sessions. But it had its own set of dramas, very interesting, good overtaking, lots going on. So it had it all, really.
It was a good race. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Signing off for only really what is a few
week.
more days, because it's this Friday and we're heading into the second of the triple headers in Austria. The home race for Red Bull.
We'll see you all in a
See you
week.
then.